Hi guys, Mehnush here from Ross IELTS Academy. I'm here today to talk to you about something very important in your IELTS writing and speaking that you may have problems with, and that is complex structure. But really, what is this complex structure that you are always told to use in your speaking and writing to get a very high score in your grammar criteria? This problem we will solve today. But before we get started, we would be really happy if you subscribe to our channel because simply this way you show us that you like our videos and you want to see more of them. Besides, you may want to visit our website and enroll in our wonderful bronze, silver, and VIP packages to get your targeted score in a very short time. Okay, moving on. If you're ready, we can get it started. In IELTS writing, you are expected to use complex grammatical structures other than simple structures. But the problem is that many candidates think that, okay, a complex structure is a very long, complicated sentence, which is wrong. And because of that, they make some grammatically incorrect sentences. Instead, they should just know that a complex structure is a combination of two or more simple sentences. It means that you should just be able to link up two simple sentences or more than two simple sentences to make your essay coherent and understandable. So basically, you can use complex structures to explain more about the points that you had mentioned earlier or expand your ideas. Let me tell you about the importance of using complex structures in IELTS writing, because many of you might say, okay, a complex structure is just a complex structure and it's not that important. But you should know that based on the band descriptors, if you only use simple structures, you will get below 6 in your IELTS grammar. If you use a combination of simple and complex structures, you will get a 6 in grammar of your IELTS writing. But if you only use complex structures, you will get a 7 and above in your grammar. So it's this important to use complex structures. You can use subordinate clause, relative clause, conditional sentences, and compound sentences using some conjunctions and linkers to make complex structures. But don't you worry, because now we are going to zoom in on each of these things to satisfy the marking criteria and get a very high score in grammar. Okay, the first one was subordinate clause. So we want to talk about subordinate clause and time order words. Time order words are to show the order of the events. And subordinate clauses are used by connecting a dependent clause with an independent clause using some words. For example, you can use some words like as, because of, so that, in order to, while, unless, rather than, provided that, so that, even if, as soon as, until, even though, although, and some time order words like firstly or first of all, then, after that, afterwards or next, after, before, finally or eventually or even in the end, as a result, in spite of, when, if, and so many other words to make your complex structure. Now, let's look at some examples because this way you will understand it better. And by the way, you don't need to use all of these words in your writing or even in your speaking. It's not necessary. You should just be able to use some of them, but correctly. Now, here we have some examples. For example, I travel abroad because I want to meet new people. While I was talking on the phone, I was cooking lunch. Even though she was richer, she was always nice to me. Although using your own car is faster and more convenient, it can result in air pollution. They woke up very late. Then, or afterwards, they decided to go shopping. Before I knew her, I was really alone. Let's now talk about the second way to make a complex sentence, which was relative clause. So basically, you can use relative clause to talk about a person, a thing, or a place. It means that when you want to explain more about these things, you can use a relative clause, and actually by using a relative pronoun. For example, you can say, the woman who lives next door, or the woman that lives next door. So by using who or that as your relative pronoun, you're explaining or telling which woman you're actually talking about. Or the book which is on the desk, or the book that is on the desk. So by using which or that, you are talking about the book, or you're mentioning a book. The house where I live in. Where I live in tells us which house you're actually talking about. So you can use who or that in a relative clause when you're talking about a person and not a thing. For example, you have three different parts or three different sentences, and you want to link them up with a relative pronoun. These are the three parts of your sentence. The woman, she lives next door, is a doctor. Now here's the complex structure for that. The woman who or that lives next door is a doctor. Or let's look at another example. They visit a lot of foreigners. They live in the city center. So here you have two simple short sentences, and you want to link them together. This is how we do it. They visit a lot of foreigners who or that live in the city center. If you want to talk about a thing, you can use which or that to make your relative clause. For example, you have this sentence and it is in three different parts. The car, it is here, it is mine. Now I want to link them together to make a very complex structure. The car which or that is here is mine. So here I have one complex sentence which is not very long but brings me a very good score in grammar. When you are talking about places, you can use the relative pronoun where to talk about it more, and also you can use this word with the preposition of the place in the relative clause. For example, you have these two sentences. This is the house, I live here. And now you want to link them up. This is how we do it. This is the house where I live in, or this is the house in which I live, or this is the house which I live in. Also, what means the thing that or the things that? For example, instead of saying the thing that happened was my fault, you can say what happened was my fault. This is also a good word to use in the relative clause grammar. When who, that, which, and where is the object of your sentence, you can leave it out this way. The woman I wanted to see was away. The woman who I wanted to see was away. So both these sentences are correct. Or, have you found the keys you lost? Instead, you can say, have you found the keys that you lost? So, both these sentences are correct. You can have the relative pronoun who, that, or where, or which based on what you're talking about, or you can just leave it out. Now let's talk about the second way you can make a complex structure, and that is conditional sentence. Now we want to talk about all the different conditional sentences you can make, so you should be very careful and listen to me with all your attention. First, we want to talk about zero conditionals. You can use zero conditionals to talk about facts or some information which is always true. You can use if or when to make your conditional sentence. So, to make a zero conditional sentence, you can have this structure. If or when plus simple present comma, simple present. So you have two sentences here. Or instead, you can change the order. You can use it this way. Simple present plus if or when plus simple present. Now, let's look at an example to see how it works. If you study hard, comma, you pass the exam. So you have two sentences here. The first one is in simple present. Actually, this is a clause. And because you have if in the beginning of this sentence, the first one is your if clause. After that, you have a comma, and then again you have your second clause, which is called your main clause. And as you can see here, both your verbs are in simple present tense because you are talking about something true that, okay, if you study hard, you can pass your exam or you pass your exam. So this is something true and it's a fact. However, instead you can say you pass the exam if you study hard. So I just changed the order. I moved my if clause to the second part and the main clause is in the beginning of the sentence. Or even another example, when you study hard, you pass the exam. So as you can see here, instead of if, I used when, and that's also correct. Or even instead, you can say, you pass the exam when you study hard. So there is a change of order here. Now let's talk about first conditionals. First conditionals are used to talk about things in the present or future. So they are actually very similar to zero conditionals, but they're more precise and detailed. And you can use this structure for first conditionals. You can use if plus simple present, comma, will. Or will plus if plus simple present. For example, if they don't wear a coat in the cold weather, they will catch a cold. Or they will catch a cold if they don't wear a coat. So, as you can see here, again, we have two clauses. The first one is the if clause, which is if they don't wear a coat in the cold weather. Then you have a comma because whenever your if clause is in the beginning of your sentence, you should have a comma after that. And then the main clause, the second clause is they will catch a cold. So the if clause is in simple present and the main clause is with will. Let's now talk about second conditionals. So we talked about zero conditionals and first conditionals, and both were about something that is possible to happen, a fact, something true. But second conditional is about something which is impossible to happen or which is actually unlikely to happen. You can use this structure for second conditionals. If plus simple past, comma, would. Or would plus if plus simple past. You can change the order. For example, if I had more time, I would read more books. Or I would read more books if I had more time. So basically, again, you have two clauses here. The first one is your if clause because you have if in it and you start your sentence with that. And whenever you have your if clause in the beginning of your sentence, you should have a comma after that, and then you have your main clause. The if clause here is in simple past, and the main clause is by using would. But as you can see here, this is something impossible to happen. As I say, if I had more time, I would read more books, which means that I don't have more time and I cannot read more books. So this is not something true or possible. Now let's look at another example. What would you do if you won a lot of money? Or, if you won a lot of money, what would you do? Here again, we have two clauses. The first one is your main clause, we have a change of order, and the second one is your if clause. The if clause is by using simple past, and the main clause is made by using would. But this is actually something impossible to happen, and we do not really expect to win this much money, and this wouldn't happen. In second conditional, instead of would, you can also use could or might this way. If plus simple past, comma, could or might. Or you can even say could or might plus if plus simple past. For example, if I won a lot of money, comma, I might buy a house. Or I might buy a house if I won a lot of money. So it means that it is possible that I would buy a house if I won a lot of money. Or another example, if it stopped raining, comma, we could go out. Or we could go out if it stopped raining. It means that we would be able to go out. So instead of would, I used could or might in my second conditional. Now let's talk about third conditionals. We use third conditionals to speculate past events. It means that you can talk about your past regrets or some unreal situations in past. So this is not something real or true or a fact that might happen. It is something that has not actually happened, and you're talking about it and regretting about it. For example, you can use this structure. If plus past perfect, comma, would have past participle, or would have past participle plus if plus past perfect. Now, let's look at an example for this one. If they had arrived earlier, comma, they wouldn't have lost the train. Or, they wouldn't have lost the train if they had arrived earlier. So once again, we have two clauses. The first one is if clause, next one is the main clause. If clause is in past perfect, had plus past participle, and the main clause has got would, have, past participle. And basically we are talking about something that has not actually happened. So we are saying that if they had arrived earlier, they wouldn't have lost the train. It means that maybe they hadn't been on time and they have actually lost the train. Now let's talk about compound sentences. Compound sentences are made up of two independent clauses which are linked together with a conjunction or a word like, for example, and its alternatives like besides, in addition to that, furthermore, plus, what's more, for, or but, and its alternative like however, nevertheless, nonetheless, or thus. Let's look at some examples. They got stuck in the traffic and arrived late. So basically here we have two clauses and both are independent clauses. The first one says they got stuck in the traffic, which is an independent clause and is complete by itself. Then again, we have another clause, they arrived late. This one again is complete and has got enough information. But then we are linking them up together by using the conjunction and. Or another example, she would like to major in law, but she doesn't know how. Again, we have two independent clauses. The first one says she would like to major in law. This is complete by itself. And the second one says she doesn't know how. Again, a complete sentence. And they are linked up together using the word but. It wasn't hard, was it? So all you need to do is to watch this video over and over again and practice using these complex structures in your writing and in your speaking. What you can do now is to go to our website and use our writing courses, or you can send us your writings to be corrected along with comprehensive written and video feedback. We would be happy to help you with your IELTS exam. I wish you best of luck and see you very soon in the next videos.